Hey guys, Dawson Weedrick here, and welcome to another edition of Nerdy in Many Ways. Now, if you haven't noticed, I've kind of revamped the design of my YouTube channel a little bit. I'm just trying to even get it more professional looking each and every day, trying to boost it up, trying to build it up, and again, the goal is 200 subscribers, so if you're a new viewer, definitely subscribe and like after you watch the video. And before we get too far ahead of myself, I want to thank some of our newer subscribers by name, and these are, of course, June Ace, Kai Reese, Paulie Greenwood, and my good friend Blake Goodmanson. Thank you guys so much for subscribing. Every little bit helps. Now, to the subject of this video, last week I felt the need to review a Will Smith movie. I don't know why. I don't know, wanted to. And I had a hard time choosing between I Am Legend and I, Robot because I've loved both movies. They both start with the word I, and they both feature Will Smith. And so I decided to put it up to a vote with you guys, and you guys sure did not have a hard time deciding. Yeah, in fact, you guys unanimously all picked I Am Legend both on my Instagram post as well as on the YouTube channel that I featured the voting on. Only makes me a little sad because I really enjoy iRobot. It was a birthday present to me, I think, when I was like 10. But regardless, we'll move on to this review of I Am Legend. So let's get to the movie. So this movie's story is based off of the Richard Matheson novel of the same name, I Am Legend. And since it was published in 1954, it has been adapted into multiple films, including The Last Man on Earth, which is in 1964, The Omega Man in 1971, and this movie, I Am Legend, in 2007, and even a spin-off, or I guess a rip-off film called I Am Omega in that same year. Ah, I see what you did there. Very clever. And be warned, there are major spoilers ahead for this film, so if you have not seen it and you do not want to be spoiled for you, I would recommend you log out, subscribe on the way out, but make sure to go watch and then come back and view this. But again, if you have seen it or don't care about being spoiled for you, I'm going to be revealing major plot points, storyline, as well as my own opinion on how some things are symbolic. And with that, let's get to it. First off, before I go into the story, I just want to say that I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. And no, it's not just because it predicted the existence of my favorite movie of all time. And I'm not going to go very deep into the differences between the book and older movies to this film, but I will mention a couple, just I guess for perspective's sake. So this story takes place in the not too distant future, or I guess not too distant future according to 2007, and mankind is driven to the edge of extinction when a so-called cure for cancer, which is basically a altered version of the measles virus, becomes an airborne virus that either kills or turns its hosts into rabid zombie-like creatures straight out of World War Z. And this, I guess, cure was developed by a scientist who was played by Emma Thompson. Thanks a lot, Emma Thompson. I really talked to you about my last video, so way to go being an evil scientist. Now, in the book as well as the older movies, these creatures are more like conscious vampires, and whereas again in this film, they're more like zombies, but they still do share some vampire-like characteristics, such as the inability to stand in or be in direct sunlight, and this is the reason that they are called dark seekers. And this story follows U.S. Army virologist Lieutenant Colonel Robert Neville, who is one of the extremely low percentage of humans who are immune to the virus. Now, before everything went to hell, Neville was tasked with trying to find a cure for the virus and has spent the past 3 years as the lone uninfected human in a desolate New York City, accompanied by his dog Sam. Throughout the film, you learn that his wife and daughter were killed in a crash during the city's evacuation, and since then, he's been living that night over and over again, while at the same time trying to focus on his world-saving mission. He has a strict schedule of where and when he goes to hunt wildlife, then what happens to the city, hit a couple of golf balls off some planes, and then when he feels like it, he finds some infected animals and tests his immune blood in hopes of developing a cure. But he always heads back to the well-fortified apartment building that serves as his lab and home before the sun sets. That way no dark seekers can track him back to his home when they come out at night. But the story really gets into motion when Sam, Robert Neville's lone canine companion, follows a deer into a building and Neville has to sneak his way past a ton of dark seekers to find her, which is actually really creepy because they're huddled around together and they're kind of like, I don't know, spazzing out. It's really creepy. They barely escape the building, but Neville also finds a way to capture and sedate an infected human, which he wasn't able to do very often, but he has done it before. And again, he's done this before, but this time another male dark seeker tries to run after him and even withstands sunlight exposure, which burns him before he finally retreats. Neville has never seen this before, because it's believed that these dark seekers lost all aspects of human behavior when they became infected. But this one seemed to show pain and loss over the capture of this female Darkseeker. Little does Neville know that this would change everything, as after this moment things start to get weird. For example, Neville frequents an old movie rental store just to add some normal day things into his super lonely life, and he's even placed mannequins in the store to simulate human interaction. One of these mannequins he refers to as Fred. He has this quick little conversation with him, and then it looks like that's the last we see of Fred. But later, as Neville is going about his everyday route, he spots Fred standing in the middle of the street staring in his direction. and Neville loses his mind and like shoots the living crap out of Fred. Rest in peace, Fred. At this moment, he starts to realize that the Darkseekers have been watching him all along and have been studying his routine. Which, again, it was believed that these things were not even human anymore. But the fact that they're able to study and keep in time where he was going to be and when he was going to be there, it's absolutely insane. It's mind-blowing and it's completely new knowledge to him. But when Neville goes to further inspect Fred's body, he accidentally springs a trap that is almost the exact same trap he had set for the Darkseeker earlier. He's knocked out cold, and when he comes to, it's almost nighttime. Way past the time he would normally be heading home. He and Sam are attacked by infected dogs, which the male Darkseeker sicks on them, and Neville ends up killing them, but Sam is bitten in the struggle, leading to one of the saddest animal deaths since Old Yeller.
Sam.
At this point, Neville has just lost everything. So soon after this, he takes his car to a pier, which he's been going frequently, and he waits till nightfall and takes on a horde of Darkseekers. Again, this horde is led by that same male Darkseeker who was distraught that one female Darkseeker was captured. Neville's car is consequently totaled, but just before the vengeful Darkseeker can get his hands on him, another car turns on its UV headlights and frightens the Darkseekers away. Neville's rescuers are Anna and Ethan, a young boy who I believe is her son, but if it's not her son, it's just basically an adopted situation where he was like left alone and she was the only person there to care for him. And they drive Neville back to his place at night. Now that's going to be important later. When Neville comes to, they reveal to him that they've been hearing his broadcast to potential survivors to meet him at that pier, and they told him they were heading to a colony of survivors. Now, Neville has been alone for so long, he doesn't believe this one bit. He's convinced that everybody's dead. But Anna's convinced that there is because God told her. Which I find to be very interesting because, one, it's not very mainstream popular anymore to mention religion or God for that matter, so I found it refreshing. And number two, you get to see the perspective of both an optimist and a cynic in a dark situation like this. Anna is the one who believes in God and that he's got a plan and that things will work out, and Neville is just basically on the opposite side of the spectrum, which really, you can't really blame him after everything he's been through over the past couple of years, as well as even just in the past couple of days. But this discussion of whether there's survivors or not is interrupted because since Anna drove them all back to Neville's place at night, the Darkseekers could finally track him down and find where he lived. And with this, a long, tense action sequence ensues as Neville, Anna, and Ethan work their way down the building, avoiding or taking out Darkseekers along the way to Neville's lab. Now, what comes next depends on the ending you watch, as this film has an alternate ending. But the original ending shows Neville and Anna and Ethan hiding behind a glass wall from the Darkseekers, and they have the female Darkseeker with them that Neville captured and attempted to cure earlier. But Anna and Neville notice that the woman is slowly regaining her natural color, and her vitals are stabilizing. Neville did it! He found a cure. And he tries to reason with the Darkseekers saying, I can save you, I can help you, I can make you feel better. But they're having none of it. That same male Darkseeker who's been basically this antagonist the entire time begins to mash against the glass wall, and at one point the shadow of the glass takes the shape of a butterfly. Now throughout the movie you see flashbacks of Neville's family, especially his daughter, and in some parts she's making a butterfly shape with her hands, and it's showing she loved butterflies. And so basically Neville takes this as a sign from on high, which is a huge turnaround from what he was just talking about earlier. And so he gives a vial of his blood to Anna, tells him and Ethan to lock themselves in the safe in the back of the lab, and sacrifices himself using a grenade to kill the Darkseekers. Then we see Anna and Ethan approaching the colony she talked about, and it's inferred that eventually a cure is synthesized and the world will begin anew. Now the alternate ending is not... I don't prefer this one. I don't like this alternate ending because... I'll just explain it to you. So it's the same setting, behind the glass wall, the Darkseekers on the other side, they're trying to get in. But instead of Neville finding out that his cure works and sacrificing himself for said cure, he realizes all that the Darkseekers want is the female Darkseeker. They just want her back. And so Neville opens the door to the glass part of the lab, he lets the male Darkseeker in, and basically lets him take the woman away. This ending shows something very interesting, and it's very similar to how the book and the older films play out, where instead of the Darkseekers being these evil, monstrous beings, it is in fact Robert Neville who is the monster for capturing and hunting the Darkseekers all these years. Now, I mentioned I'm not as much of a fan of this ending as I am of the original, because the original ending has, it has redemption, a renewal of faith, a noble sacrifice, and a hopeful future for humanity. Whereas the alternate ending, it's simply it's just a realization of like, oh crap, I'm terrible. Even though these monsters have been killing and infecting people for the past couple years, we'll just ignore that fact, which I feel like is the reason they didn't use the alternate ending as the true ending, because it doesn't quite make as much sense and it doesn't feel as complete or satisfying. So that's the reason I like the original ending better. Now, one thing I want to mention about this movie that isn't necessarily in the movie itself, but it's on the special features of the DVD package, which if you have the DVD of I Am Legend, you know that it features some fantastic animated shorts, which basically highlight and illustrate the dark feeling around this world with the virus, this post-apocalyptic world. And I'll just give you an example. One of them takes place in Central America, I believe, and it follows this family that has this like safe house, which is like underground, and it's behind a very heavily locked door. And the daughter of the family, she's like 16, goes out when everything's going crazy and finds her boyfriend who is infected and kisses him, and comes back and wants to be in the vault with the family, but they know she went and saw her boyfriend, and they know that they probably kissed. And so they have to lock her out of the room because she is more than likely going to become a Darkseeker. And she slowly becomes one, and she ends up as a Darkseeker going and finding her boyfriend, who is now a full-on Darkseeker, and they interact with each other, and it all seems normal in their mind. But they go to the vault and they say like, oh, we're going to find my family, we're going to be around them, oh, it's going to be great, I'm going to prove Dad wrong, that I'm not infected, that everything's fine, but I'm really hungry. And then you find out that unknowingly they're eating her family, and it's super sad, super heart-wrenching. I mean, it's so devastating, and again, it just paints a picture so well of such a dark and dreary and post-apocalyptic world. So that's my thoughts on I Am Legend from 2007 starring Will Smith. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you had other thoughts that you had about the movie, make sure to leave them down in the comment section down below. And if you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Every like and subscription helps, as I'm trying to get this channel up to 200 subscribers and keep building from there. And again, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.